Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Good evening, wherever you're located. We have over 200 people registered for this webinar this evening. So I extend a warm welcome to all of you. Tonight's live workshop on Zapier integrations is going to talk about how you can automate your business. A few weeks ago, Janie Budnick and I kicked off this series, and we did a really high level overview of the possibilities of using automation in your business. And tonight we are going to get our hands dirty finally. And I'm going to do some practical demonstrations and show you exactly how you can set up these automations yourself. So tonight we'll talk briefly about how you can determine if you should even be automating. We'll also cover if automating makes sense for your business. That's really important. And then we'll jump into creating some automations. You'll be able to follow along, but don't worry. If you don't catch everything, there is a replay available after this webinar. And then finally, we will wrap up with a Q&A. So if you have questions, drop them in the chat. As small business owners, we know that time is our most precious commodity. I never, ever have enough of it. And I'm here to help you get that time back. Mundane tasks, they drain valuable time and energy from you and your team, and they divert your focus from more strategic and creative endeavors. And there are a lot of costs associated with these tasks. So the automation is going to save you time, make you more efficient. Because, see, here's the deal: when you automate a task, it gets done correctly on time every time. And they're done right. So no human error. It increases client satisfaction because fewer errors and faster response times to your clients result in increased revenues because your clients will notice. And when they notice, your revenues grow. And then it'll also help you scale effectively. I say this I used to say this, I should say, all the time. So if you've ever said, I want to grow my business, but I don't have time, well, I am here to help you get that back. As business owners, we have an app for everything. There's an app for this, an app for that. And the problem is they don't talk to each other. And I'm going to show you how to solve that problem. So without further ado, let's get into tonight's presentation. So I covered this in my previous webinar, but I think it bears repeating. I often hear people say that something isn't worth automated. It only takes me 1 minute to do this, but each minute builds on the minute before it. And before you know it, you are spending 10, 20, 30 minutes a day on these tasks. And I want to show you what just 10 minutes a day does. So 10 minutes a day equals 70 minutes a week, right? If you take that over the course of a year, that is 1.5 work weeks. What if you could save 20 minutes a day? That's 3 work weeks over the course of a year. What would you do if you had 3 more work weeks in your life? What if you could automate an hour's worth of tasks, 9 work weeks? How many more dog walks, pet sits, grooms, photo sessions, whatever? What can you do with 9 work weeks? I want my time back. should you be automating? That's a really important question before you start doing this. Don't automate it just because you don't like doing something. That's really not the best reason to be automating. Maybe you should be automating, possibly. It just depends. And we're going to cover this in just a moment. You need real live data to back up your decision to automate. I am a data nerd and I use it to drive my business. So you need the data. I want to be really clear that automation isn't free. Okay. You are going to have to pay for your automation software. But I'm going to show you how you can do some of this for free tonight. So, a cost benefit analysis really is very important before you start automating. So, first, you want to document your current processes. We talk a lot about documenting processes, but it's really important here. Get a pen and a notepad and start writing down what you do and how much time it takes you to do that. So determine the amount of time you're spending on all of these processes. And then what I like to do is calculate the annual time spent on each process because we look at like the previous slide showed, we look at an automation and we think, or a process and think 1 minute, 2 minutes, that's not really worth it. So calculate the annual time spent. You see how these mundane tasks just amplify the time that you're spending on the task. And then I want you to determine what you're going to be spending your time on instead of doing the tasks. So if you're going to use that time wisely to build your business, then it is definitely worth it. If you're going to spend that time watching TV, then maybe it's not the right time to automate. But how many more business introductions could you make in an extra 30 minutes a day, for example? Like I could visit 2 apartment complexes and introduce my dog walking business. And in 30 days, that's 60 new business contacts. That's a lot of contacts. So use the time wisely. So there's some questions that you want to ask yourself before you automate it. So you want to know, is the task repetitive? So automation is really beneficial for repetitive tasks that do not require human judgment. Okay. Is the task rule based? The task really needs to be based on a set of predetermined rules and logic that can be programmed in the automation. For example, I know every time I get a new client prospect in my business, I want to send them an immediate welcome email and a text message. That is a rule and it doesn't require any human judgment. So that is a perfect example of a process that can be automated. You want to ask yourself, is the process error prone if it's done manually? So if so, human error costs time and money, and automation provides many more consistent outcomes. And then is the task or is the time, or rather the task, time consuming? Because tasks that are high volume or take up significant employee time are great candidates for automation. And then finally, and this is so important, is the process mature? So if you haven't figured out your processes yet, you don't want to automate it because automating a process that is still evolving and changing can result in frequent reworking of those automations. So we want to get them in place and let them run instead of spending a lot of time tracking these automations to see if they're still applicable to our business processes. Then you get to analyze. Okay, so I know we're talking some basic stuff here before we even get into the automations, but it's important that you do this. You want to examine your automation cost because, like I said, it's not free. Normally have to pay for the software. There may be outsourcing costs if you decide to hire somebody to set these up. There is maintenance, and you may have to train your team on how to do their processes differently now that automations are in place. And when you're factoring it or when you're figuring out your current costs, include your labor, include your time and other resources that are used in the manual processing. And then I want you to figure out what you can save. So estimate the time and the cost savings. Consider too, though, less tangible benefits such as improved accuracy and customer satisfaction. Sometimes you can't put a dollar amount on customer satisfaction, but we know that you can lose business if you let things drop. And then you want to think about, is there an impact on employees? So it actually may improve employee satisfaction by removing those mundane tasks. And I would like for you to consider what would happen in the unlikely event that an automation failed. So you have to have a backup plan. You could always revert back to your manual processes, but just have a plan in place in case that happens. And my goodness, test. You don't want to make an automation live when it is customer facing without testing the heck out of that automation. So consider running a really small scale pilot when you're ready to go live to evaluate the feasibility and the benefit. All right. So, as business owners, we use a ton of different apps. Many of them don't talk to each other. You're entering data in multiple places, having to manually complete these tasks. And there are various automate platforms out there, some of which we may cover going forward. But the one I'm the most fond of is Zapier by far. It's gotten a lot of attention lately because a software that many of us on this call use, Time to Pet, they recently announced a Zapier integration. So a lot of us are really talking about it, and it's a buzzword now. But I've been using Zapier even before that for quite some time. So it really doesn't matter what software you're using, there is an automation for you somewhere. And if your software doesn't have a direct integration, reach out to me. I can do some consulting with you to see if there are any workarounds on that. So today, I want to show you some of the more simple Zapier integrations and how you can use these in your business. I don't want to really overwhelm you. So Zapier, what it does is it really is the glue or the bridge between two different apps. So you have one app that's doing something. So maybe it's a form on your website, and then that information goes to Zapier. Okay. And it's easy to set this up. I'll show you in just a minute. And then what Zapier does is it takes that information and it does something with it. And a lot of times that means it's going to drop it into another app for you. So, for example, you have a web form, maybe it's a new client form. You may want to drop those responses into a Google Sheet. Easy to do. You may want to send an email immediately to whoever created or filled out the form. Maybe you use Trello or Asana or ClickUp to create new client checklists. You can drop it in there and automatically create these checklists so that they can keep you on track. So, a lot of stuff you can do with Zapier. So, just an idea of what you can do. I've shared this screen before. And these are some of the things that I am using in my business. So, for example, I send new clients a welcome card in the mail. I add all new clients to my email marketing software. I send neighbors of clients a postcard. When a pet has a birthday, I send a unique email that's customized to that pet. And they're so funny because I have ChatGPT write them for me. I add clients to our phone system. My goodness, there's just so much you can do. And let's not even talk about employee onboarding. There's that's a whole another webinar there, but you can do a lot with it. So here is an example of a process that I have automated a fair amount of. I run a pet sitting and dog walking business, and this one process, the client onboarding process, it's just the first touch point with a client. We do many of these steps before we even provide service. So just one of many that we do, just a very small sampling of the different processes. But there are, in this particular flow, there are 11 steps, and seven of those are completely automated. They're hands off. So that's a lot of time that is saved in my business. So just an idea of what you can do with this. So let's get to the fun stuff. I'm going to show you how to set these up. Again, if you feel lost, that's okay. Just watch the replay. You'll get it, I promise. It may seem foreign at first, but you'll get it. I have faith. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here with you. All right, so Zapier, what you want to do first is create a Zapier account. They do have a free version available. The paid versions do allow you to create much more complex automations. A lot of the automations I use in my business are quite complex, but tonight we're going to focus on the more simple ones. To get an idea of everything you can do in Zapier and to get inspired, Zapier has added a template section to actually, there we go. There is a template section. I think I may be sharing the wrong screen though. Give me just a second. We are live. I wanted to show you these templates, so I'm just showing you the wrong screen. I thought I had this set up. My apologies. Let's do this. All right. All right, here we go. Right screen. Okay. So when you log into Zapier, you create that free account. So that's a good first step. Scroll down the screen until you see the template section, and it will show you a lot of what you can do. For example, save new Gmail emails, matching certain traits to a Google spreadsheet. I use this to capture receipts coming in to Gmail, and Zapier will extract the information out of that and put it in a Google Sheet for me. A great way to track the expenses in my business. You can send emails via Gmail when certain things happen. Let me show you all these apps though that it connects with. The list is endless. They It's up to 5,900 now. So Google Sheets, Gmail, Slack, Google Calendar, email. Come on, you use all of these. Facebook, Google Drive, MailChimp. The list is just endless. ChatGPT, I love that. Google Docs, Instagram. So any app you're using is probably in this list. And it just goes on and on. Okay. So tonight I'm going to show you how to build a couple apps, and I don't want to overwhelm anyone here. If you're interested, we can definitely get more detailed in future webinars, but again, don't want to overwhelm. So let's show you how you are going to create a Zap. So a Zap is an automation. Okay. So here are a list of some of the Zaps that I've created, but what you will do is you will click on the button, create a Zap. Okay. So create a Zap. All right. So you'll notice there are two parts to a Zap. There is a trigger. So a trigger is what has to happen before the automation runs. There has to be something that occurs. So either you get an email or you have a form filled out on your website or a new client is created in time to pet. That is a trigger. And what you want to happen, the action is what that is. So an action is the event a Zap performs when it starts. Okay. And I'll demonstrate how that can work. So I want to let's do a Zap here that all of you can use. So Google reviews to a Google sheet. So you get a new Google review. It comes in and you want to take those reviews and put them in a Google sheet. Now, why would you want to do that? Sometimes they disappear. And if they disappear, you want the backup in case you need to ask Google to reinstate a review. You can take the reviews off these Google Sheets and post them directly to your website or post them on your social media all automatically. So we're going to set one of those up. So the first step in a trigger, let's see here. I'm going to actually remove myself just so that you can see everything in the screen here. All right. So what I'm going to do is search for a trigger. So in this case, we're sending a Google review to a Google Sheet. So I'm going to type in, and sometimes you have to type in just some multiple things here. Let's see, Google My Business. There we go. It's right there. So this means it has a direct Zapier integration and it'll make it super simple. So Google My Business. Now, the first time you connect an app, you may have to sign in to the app. You'll have to authorize it, Zapier, to use the app. But Google My Business. So I've already signed in, so I won't have to demonstrate that here. But there will always be a drop down box event. So what you do is just click in there, and some of the triggers will only have one event available. Some will have many. Okay. But for Google My Business, we're going to click on the only event that's available, and that's a new review. So it triggers when a new review is submitted. Okay. And then I just continue. So I've already logged in. So continue. All right. So now it's going to ask me to choose a location. Now, if you don't know how to set these up, just keep going down the list. Okay. And just open up the list. And let's see here. I've got a few, but we're going to do away home and pet care of Utah. That's my business. Then continue. And then it will always ask you to test the trigger. That's important. So test the trigger and you'll see what happens here. All right. When you test, it's going to go to Google Business and retrieve the last three reviews that you got. And so there's an A, B, and a C. So what you can do, we're just testing this right now. You take a look at this just to make sure that it's bringing in information That looks right. So it looks like I have reviews actually pulling in here. So that's great. I can use any of these for building out this app. So you can choose A, B, or C. It really does not matter. So I'm looking in this, and let's take a look at the information that it provides us. A photo, a URL. How about the star rating of 5, the person's name, the comment, and then when it was created. And then there's an ID number down here. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but I'm just going to continue with the selected record. So now what do I want to do with this information? I want to send it to a Google Sheet. So I'm going to type in Google Sheet. All right, Google Sheets. So let's just follow along. Event. All right, what do I want it to do? In a Google Sheet, here's a Google Sheet. It's just a blank sheet here. There are columns and there are rows. So you want to, what we're trying to do is put the Google reviews into one of the rows on the spreadsheet. Okay, so let's go back to Zapier and see what our options are here. Copy worksheet. No, that's not right. Create a spreadsheet. Nope, that's not right. Create a row, a spreadsheet row. That seems like that probably would work. And look, you can test these. If you don't know what something does, give it a whirl, see what happens. We're just testing here. So I am going to create a row. Continue. I just keep continuing. Okay. Continue. All right. The first drop down is asking me what Google Drive does the spreadsheet reside on. So I'm going to open this up. Just let's just see what it does. Okay. There's only one option, my Google Drive, because I've already signed into Google, right? So I'm going to click that. Okay, we go down to the next one. What spreadsheet? Okay, so I'm going to open this up. And I've created a spreadsheet just for this demonstration, but it'll show you all your spreadsheets. Okay, so I'm going to pick the Zapier demonstration. You'll want to create a spreadsheet before you get to the step right here because you need to have a spreadsheet to connect. Okay, so create the spreadsheet first. So now it's going to ask us which worksheet at the bottom here on every Google Sheet. You can have multiple sheets. See, these are worksheets. So we just want it to go into number 1. Okay, it's going into sheet number 1. All right. And look, it walks you step by step through this. So it says, we don't see any headers in the selected spreadsheet. Do you or did you add headers to the spreadsheet? If so, just refresh this page. Okay. I did not create headers because it's a blank worksheet, right? So, what headers do I need to put in this spreadsheet? If I go back to the trigger, let's take a look at the test. This is why the test is important. We see all the information that's coming in to the Zap here. So the comment, the name, the star rating, the time. So let's just create the headers for that. Okay. So time created, the name, the star rating, the comment. So that's the actual review. And I talked to you about the ID. I want you to add the ID to this. Okay. So let's go back to Zapier here. And I have already, let's continue. I've already tested. So skip the test. Yes, I want to skip the test. All right. So remember, it said, did you add headers to the spreadsheet? I just did. So if so, refresh this page. So let's refresh it. We just do what it tells us to do. All right. So now you see it actually pulled in the columns that I created, the headers, right? So time created, let's click on that. All right. So remember, it pulled one of the records. I had to select the A, B, or C. So this was the C one, and it shows you all the information that it has pulled in. Okay. So what I need to do is map the Google Business Review to the spreadsheet. Okay. So let's see here. In the time created, I want to map that to this one here that says created at. Okay, that makes sense. Time and time, right? Okay. We just go down to the next one, the name of the person. There's the name right there. Reviewer name. Okay. The star rating. Let's put that in there. 5. And then the comment. See, that's the actual review there. We're going to add the comment and then the ID number. And I'll tell you what that's used for in just a moment. Continue. Okay. Test the step. We're just doing what it's asking us to do. Test the step. Okay. It is testing. So let's see what happens when it does. All right. A spreadsheet row was just sent to Google Sheets. So let's go back to Google Sheets and look what I have. I have a actual review in the Google Sheet. Okay. So that's how easy it is to set up this Zap. Okay. And you can do this with the free version as well. That ID number, I think, is important because if you ever have to ask Google to reinstate a review, that ID number can't hurt. Okay. All right. So let's do another Zap. Oh, and you'll always want to publish the Zap when you're done. Okay. So I'm going to exit this. All right. How about what if you're using time to pet? I know none of you are, but what if you are? Maybe I want to send an email to that client right away. Okay. So create a Zap. All right, the trigger. So, what is the trigger? First, I need to come up with the app here. So, let's just type in time to pet. Okay. There are a couple versions here. Just always select the one that says latest. Okay. And you'll have to sign in the time to pet, but I've already done that. So, I'm good. All right. What is the event? I just said new client created. Actually, this is going to be for a prospect. Okay. So when a new prospect is created in Time to Pet, because if you go to my website and you click on become a client, it actually creates a prospect in Time to Pet. I don't have any other forms connected to the website. It's just the Time to Pet. Okay. It's asking me to choose an account because I've already signed in, but I'm just going to choose my Time to Pet account. All right, continue and test the trigger. All right, it's pulling in my latest prospect again, A and B. I'm going to continue. Now, what do I want to do with this prospect? You could use Gmail and send an email through Gmail. That's perfectly fine. Or you can create, Zapier actually has an email program that it can do it for you. But let's just do Gmail. What if I want to send them an email through Gmail? Okay, Gmail. All right, what do I want to do? So, the events, a list of actions here. Oh, here we go. I want to send an email. Easy, right? Okay, send an email, continue, and just following the steps here. It'll ask you to sign in, but I'm going to continue. All right, so I'm just going to follow this step by step all the way down the window here. So, who will this email be sent to? Okay, so I'm going to send this to this email. It showed up here. I could send a CC or a BCC, but I don't want to do that here. Who is this coming from? Probably want to do it from my business. Let's see the from name. So who does the email come from? So I'm just going to put my business in here. Play home pick here. Okay. The subject, I'm just playing here. Hi, prospect. Okay. The body type, if using HTML, you must add all formatting, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to leave it as plain. We just sending a plain text or plain email. And then the body of the email. What do you want the email to say? Hi. I could put, oh, look, I can put her name in here. I don't want to say hi prospect, right? I want to say hi and then her first name. So I'm going to click on her name. Hi, first name. Okay. So it customizes the email for you, right? We will be in touch within 3 hours. Look for a phone call from us shortly. So now the prospect knows what the next step is, right? Immediately. That is huge because your prospects, when they fill out that form, they hit submit, they're going on to the next pet sitter. Because in this industry, we have a really bad habit of telling people we will get back to them in 24, 48 hours. I don't think, honestly, that does not work in my business because by the time I call them back, they're like, oh, we've already found somebody else. So you want to give your prospect an immediate response, even though it's going to take these 3 hours to process this. Now, she knows, right? I can then add a signature if I would like. I've already have some that are set up. I don't want to add a label, don't want to add an attachment. You could, but no attachments. Continue. So remember how I said test, test, and be careful when you are doing a Zap that is client facing. You don't, in the testing process, you don't want to send the client an email. Okay. That's not good. I've already been in touch with this prospect. It would look really silly of me to send an email right now. Okay. So let's go back to all the actions here. And remember where it said to, and I selected the email address that came from Time to Pet. I'm going to delete that right now. This is a tip for you. And I'm just going to put in my own email address. Okay. That way, when I test, the email is going to go to my email address and not the client. Be sure you do that. And then when you realize that it works, go back, edit the Zap, and then put the client's email address in that step. Okay. And then test the step. And an email was sent about 4 seconds ago. And I'm not going to log into my email, but it worked. I promise you. So I'll go over to my Gmail and I will make sure it worked. And if it did, publish the Zap. Okay. And you can do this one on the free version as well. So if it is published, it will tell you that it's active. Okay. So if I publish this right now, actually, I want to come up here and name this. So let's say prospect, send a new prospect Gmail. Okay. I'm going to publish it. And see now at the top right hand side of the screen, oh, you can't see it because the logo's there. My apologies. But there's a button that says it is on and it is live. Okay. But I'm going to turn it off because we're just demoing here. What if I had a new client. And again, it doesn't matter if you're using Time to Pet. I'm just demonstrating using Time to Pet because it's what I use in my business, but it could be a form from your website. Okay. Simple enough. So if I get a new client, I want to add them to my phone system. So I use Open Phone for my phone system. We can do a chat about that at another time. There are a whole host of reasons, but I love it. So I want to add a new client to the phone system. So that way, if the client calls me, I know who it is, right? That's super important. And I know a lot of you are adding your clients to your Google Contacts or to your phone. This is how you can do that as well. Okay. So if you're using Google Contacts instead, just or your Apple Contacts, whatever, just substitute that for the open phone in this demonstration. So let's go to create a new Zap, create a new Zap. All right. So what do we want to do? All right. So a new client comes into Time to Pet. I want to add them to my phone system. Time to Pet. We've already done this. We're getting good at this. Okay. So new client created. And by the way, I actually do this on my prospects too, because if a prospect calls me back, I want to be able to know who's calling. Okay. Choose my Time to Pet account, continue, test the trigger. We've already done this. We have the A, B, and C again. Just continue. All right. So what do I want to do? Let's see. Okay, open phone. That's what I use. So does that have an integration? Let's check. Open phone. Yep, it sure does. There we go. Open phone. So now what do I want the action to be? There's only two options here. I can send a message. That's a great one. You can send a text message to your prospect. And I said I do that. Or I can just create a contact in open phone. So create a contact, continue. I'll have to sign in to open phone, but I've already done that. So save a little bit of time here. Okay. If you don't know what something does, leave it blank. Okay. This ID, a little tricky. Took me a while to figure this one out. I didn't know what to do with it. So I just leave it blank. Okay. I want to add the first name. So what is the first name? Well, it's right there in Time to Pet. Okay. Add the first name, add the last name. And again, I'm just going straight down the list. Company, job title, don't need all that. A phone number. I want to add their phone number to my phone system. So there we go. And then the email address. Do I have that? Yes, I do. It's asking me, is this spam? Is this caller spam? No, they're not spam. I'm just going to leave it blank. I have some tags set up. One of those is potential client. In my phone system, I can tag somebody as a potential client. But since this is a new client, they're not potential. So I'm not going to select that. I don't want to share with anybody. So continue. And then we test. A contact was sent to open phone just now. So I would go into my open phone system and make sure that contact was in there. Okay. Trust me, it's there. So that's what you do. And when you verify that it worked, you publish. Okay. Simple enough. This is another one you could do on the free version as well. Sending the same thing with sending a text message. Just talked about that. That would be easy enough to set up too. If I want to change the action, just go back and say, "Hey, I would much I would much rather just send a text message." And then it's going to in the action, it'll say, "Who is it from?" It's from my business line to this client's phone number. And then I would type in my message. Okay. Again, when you're testing this stuff, you don't want to put the client's phone number in here first. Okay. Put in your personal phone number just to make sure it works. Okay. Anything that's going to go to a client, use your own information first. Okay. And then if something's not right, it's going to tell you enter a valid value. So if it turns red, you did something wrong, do it again. Okay. So I'm going to come out of here. So, what about if I get a Google review? Let's think through this. So, if I get a Google review, maybe I want to publish that to my website, okay, or to social media, to Facebook. But let's just think through this process here, okay? So, if I get a 5-star Google review, that's a great candidate to publish, right? If I got a 1-star review, I wouldn't want to publish that to Facebook, right? And this stuff happens automatically, immediately. So you have to be careful, okay? So let's show you how you can overcome that. So I'm going to create a Zap. Now, just a little warning here. This Zap is a little more advanced, not much. I'll show you how to do it step by step here. You will need a paid account to do this, but let's just show you what is possible. Okay. So I get a new Google review, the Google business. We've already been through this. I get a new review. Okay. Continue, continue. Okay. Location. I'm going to use my business here. We've already done this. So I'm going to test it, always test each step. Okay. I'm going to pull in the most, one of these reviews here. Continue with the selected record. All right. What did I say we want to do? We want to publish it to Facebook and my website, but only if it is a 5-star review. So there is something in Zapier called a filter. So only proceed when a certain condition is met. Okay. So only continue if the number rating exactly matches 5. I type in the number 5. Okay. Then I'm going to continue. And it tells me this sample review that it's using for the testing, it's telling me that the Zap would have continued because it matched the criteria. Okay. So if you do something wrong here and you think you set it up for a 5, and then it tells you that didn't, it would not continue, then you did something wrong. Just redo it. Go back and take a look at it. Okay. And then I want to post this to Facebook. So a Facebook page, already done this. Let's see here. Create a post on my Facebook. What page? It's my company page. What do I want the post to say? So maybe it's something like, I check out our most recent raving fan. Okay. And then I want to add the review. Okay. So I'm going to come down here. So in the review, I want to add the comment. That's where the review text lies. Okay. The link URL, don't need that. Continue. And this is what the message would look like. Hey, check out our most recent raving fan, and here is the review. If the formatting doesn't look right, just Go back up and change it. Okay. Maybe I want to add a space here. I don't want a big block of text, right? Test the step. I am not going to test this though, because I've already posted this to my Facebook. So I'm not going to test this, but you get the point. If it works and it gets posted to your Facebook, then you just publish the Zap. Okay. Now, when you have more than two steps in a Zap, that is called a multi step Zap. And you will find out if you were only on the free version, you won't be able to do a multi step. Okay. So I'm going to back out of here. I don't want to publish this because I've already done it. But there are so many things you can do with Zapier, sending your employee applications, sending them off to an email or sending them to a task management system like Trello or ClickUp. There's also been a lot of interest in the more complex Zaps that I do, sending the welcome cards and the neighbors of the clients, marketing to those. They are more advanced and complex, so you have to be careful not to send multiple greeting cards to a client, for example. So there are some additional steps you have to take in order to prevent that from happening. I've created those steps in my workflows, but play around with the simple ones, see what you can do, at least just with the free version. Like I said, I wanted to keep this a bit on the more simple side tonight. We're going to do a live Q&A in just a moment. So if you have a question that hasn't been answered this evening, drop a comment. I know there have been some comments in here, and I'm going to read through those here in just a moment. I want to take a look here. But if you need help with setting up these apps, feel free to post your questions in the Next Level Facebook group. You can see how to find me here. Just scan the QR code. It'll take you right there. And also, if you know any colleagues that might benefit from this group, please invite them. Look, we have an amazing community in this group. I love you all. And it is filled with some of the absolute brightest minds in this industry. And we try to keep our conversations revolving around building your business. Okay. So tonight I showed you how to save some time. So let's take a look now at the comments. Let's see here. All right. What does the Facebook of your review end up looking like? So, but if we go back to the Zap, the one that I just created, it showed me what it will actually look like. Okay. When I remember when I tested it, that's what it will look like. Okay. But you can modify this to make it anything you want. But that's the text that will go to Facebook. Okay. Will the Zap pull older reviews or only from now on? Great question. Only from now on. Okay. It won't pull in all the historical data, but that's okay. Let's see here. Adriana. Oh, I love this one. What is the difference between new client and new client prospect? Okay. I can show you that here. Let's go to my website. Okay. I'll just show you. So prospects is there's my lead magnet. Schedule a pet care professional now. Book a pet sitter or dog walker. Okay. So anytime somebody clicks this, they go to a schedule page. There's the existing client login, right? But there's also become a client. So when they click on become a client, it goes to the create account form in Time to Pet. And that's how oh, you know what? I'm not showing you my screen. So sorry about that. All right. So when they click on become a new client, it goes to this form right here. So they fill that in, they submit it to Time to Pet, create your account. And that is what I call a prospect in Time to Pet. Okay. A new client is when you have that list of the requests, the new clients. When you see that and you approve it, it then turns into a new client. So that is the difference. If you do not use this prospect form, then create using the trigger for the time to pet prospecting isn't going to work for you. Okay. All right. Somebody asked, what happens when you publish a Zap? It goes live. Okay. And it is active and in force. So test them before you publish. Let's see here. What are the most beneficial zaps that you would set up for someone new to the automation process? So I think some of the ones I showed you tonight would be a really great first step. So I would start there just because it helps you learn how to use Zapier. Okay. I would start there. If you are new or not new to the business, but new to the automation process, yeah. So start with the more simple ones first. All right, Lauren, how can you create zaps from time to pet? Okay, great. To send a survey after a service has happened. So, this is one of the more complex zaps that I was speaking of. Let me just try to break this down for you. So, we all know that we don't get, so when you use the schedule information, there isn't a trigger for that. Okay. It's all based around new client prospect when an account is updated, but there's nothing in there about the schedule, like when service ends, right? So I had to create a workaround for that and ensure, and this is just something that is a possibility. Every day, time to pet drops a backup. I'm so proud of this one. Drops a backup into Dropbox, okay? And it comes over as a zipped file. So if you've ever seen your TTP backups, they're in Dropbox, right? And so what I do is I've created a Zap that will take that zip file, it unzips it for me, it reads the file, and it can determine the what the schedule is. So that's how I do the survey. So again, it's a more complex that, but if you can think of it in your mind, there's probably a way to do it. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions? Oh yeah. So Mary, same deal. So what about sending surveys 2 days after the last visit? Great. So we know Time to Pet has a flag that tells us what the last visit is. So for right now, again, Time to Pet, you can't use schedule information to trigger a zap. It's a bummer, but again, there's a workaround. I just demonstrated or talked about how I do that with the backups. I have asked Time to Pet to start allowing us access to the schedule information, but I thought a workaround would be to look at my Google Calendar. So you know how you can link up the Time to Pet schedule to your Google Calendar. In the Google Calendar, in those events, I was so bummed to see that last visit flag doesn't carry over. So I've asked them to start including that. And if they do, then that will be a great workaround. So for now, I've got to rely on the TTP backups. And yes, Mary, it's a bummer, but there's a workaround. So if you need help with these workarounds, reach out to me. So, any other questions before we end for the evening? One last chance here. Okay. Well, looks like, let me just go back and make sure no other questions? Yeah, no other questions there. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. Your feedback is really valuable to me. I want to keep bringing you content that you find useful. Some of the topics we cover are more advanced. This one I wanted to be a little more simple. So I'll send you a survey at the end of this webinar. And if you take just a couple minutes and fill that out for me, then I'll know where to go with future webinars. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. It's been a lot of fun. Hope you learned something. Have a good night. Take care.